going to hear next from CarCutter, and what we're going to talk about is the automotive retail, digital merchandising, and the symbiotic duo between the two. To help us do that, I'd like to welcome up Jason Daury and Brian Free. Gentlemen, stage is yours.
Good morning, everybody. So, as we just talked about, I want you guys to take a step back and think about any of the last interactions you've had with buying something. It can be shoes, can be a purse, can be groceries. One of the central driving factors of that purchase has been the visual content. And again, the important thing is it doesn't matter what the price point you were shopping for. If you come to a site looking for shoes, Nike's the example here. If you look at this site behind me, it looks really similar to an automotive site. You have a carousel of images, you have a search bar on the left. That's a site you want to interact with because that's what you've been accustomed to. That's what you see, that's what you interact with. Now, keeping Nike in mind, what happens if you showed up to Nike and it looked like this? Who's buying from a trusted brand like Nike that nobody's questioning the products when they display them in this way? It doesn't cast. Think of the last thing you bought on Amazon. Marketplace, lots of the same products, different price points. Where are you going to take your money? Are you going to take it to the product that is represented like this, with a blurry picture, with a sideways picture, with a backwards picture, with a coming soon picture? Or are you going to take it to the ones that have taken the time to digitally merchandise what they're pushing to you? So again, if you think of your websites today, what do you do with those websites? You invest thousands of dollars to get leads in. You invest thousands of dollars creating these sites. It's essentially, you're running towards the goal line, you've got the ball in hand, and right when that person lands on your site, this is what they see. $20, $30, $50, $60, $100,000 cars are blurry, aren't showing, nothing. And we expect them to act differently than you might when you're buying a pair of shoes for yourself. With CarCutter, and what we're going to review with Brian, is how simply we can take that past site and move it to something like this. So with that, I'd like to welcome Brian Free on stage.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Brian Free. I was with AutoNation for just under 26 years as VP of Digital Marketing. So everything we're talking about today was super critical in our world, right? So with managing 300 Tier 3 websites, having the right merchandising for our digital products was key. So we went through that journey of missing photos, not having a consistent photo order. So mission one was fixing all that. So made sure we always had at least if we didn't have actual photos, we had stock photos. And then we had a template to follow. So there was a set order of exterior photos, interior photos. So we did the basic blocking and tackling phase one. Now, in this world, and where customers expect this on all e-commerce sites, right? They want to see the products. They want to live those products. We really needed to stand up. With 300 different dealerships, 300 different locations, some didn't have the right staging areas, not the right lighting. You would see a truck in the background, a panel truck. We wanted that consistency you see on other sites like a Carvana where every car goes through a booth. AutoNation couldn't afford that, right? Having a booth in 300 locations, that just does not scale. So we hooked up with CarCutter and really made sure that all of our vehicles, no matter where they are on the internet, had the same look and feel. And in addition, we also included branding elements. So when you look at, say, AutoNation.com or you go to cars.com, AutoNation vehicles because they all are consistent, first-class imaging backgrounds.
And so that element that made you realize that vehicle imagery was essentially the key priority. So it was being able to get consistency. And as you mentioned, it wasn't about doing this across 300 dealerships, because each of these dealerships is a unit in of itself. So you had to convey the necessity to scale with them, and doing it in other ways that aren't digital, and especially with the integration ecosystem. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure, absolutely, and it's a great point. It's whether you're a 300 rooftop dealership or a single dealership, right? You all have invested in your technology and your processes for your inventory and for distribution of it, right? So you don't want to add another vendor to the solution that makes to change that, right? That makes it complicated. We were able to plug in CarCutter right into our existing infrastructure. They worked with all of our vendors, worked with all the integrations, website, third parties, really made the job easier, right? That's everybody's dream, that you're not introducing technology and introducing a whole new set of problems. You have a vendor and a partner who's working to make sure that they can do that work for you.
Perfect. So when you're looking at this, and again, this doesn't matter if you're the size of AutoNation with 300 at-scale projects or a 1 or 2 rooftop organization, what were the main roadblocks you faced when looking for a solution to bring better imagery?
Sure. And so the roadblocks are a few, right? All this is hard, right? When we opened up and said, image coming soon, having blurry photos, right? We all know the importance of having quality images, but why don't we in the automotive industry? Because it's really, really hard, right? I think you all agree with that. There's lots of different players. So the roadblocks are, as always, consistent photography, using templates, right? Making sure that if you're doing it in-house, right, that you have a tool and products that make sure your photographers are doing it the right way every single time. So it's not like, hey, one guy comes on one day and another guy comes on another, and the photos look completely different, right? Or if you're using a lot service vendor, making sure that they follow the processes that you set up. So all these are roadblocks to getting it right. And then again, the last one is, most dealers don't have the space or the opportunity to have a proper staging area with the right background, with the right lighting. A solution like CarCutter solves that for you and gives you that professional quality image across all of your vehicles. We had 100,000, that's great, that's a lot, but a single dealer, the same concepts apply. You want that same quality image so your vehicles stand out against your competitors.
And I think that's one of the most interesting things is what you're telling me is your dealers quickly recognized the impact that having all of their images looking the same, no matter if they were taken in California or in Florida or in Maine,
Exactly.
they were able to create that AutoNation look that I think a lot of people are very familiar with today with that gray slate background.
Right, exactly. And that's it. And making sure that no matter where it is, right, it's your own dealer websites. It could be portals. It could be the automotive partners, your advertising partners, the cars.coms, the KBBs of the world, right? You want that same look no matter where your customer's traveling. You know they travel, right? They're on all these different websites, but they know your inventory. And really the big thing is when you're looking at it, right, is what do you want? Not only do you want professional looking inventory, you want people to engage, right? That's the whole key. And that's what really, when we were looking to say, how do we take it to the next level, was we wanted more engagement, people clicking through cars, clicking through the photo galleries. That tells you they're invested, and what does that lead to? Website conversions, which is what we're looking for here.
Perfect. And so now the big piece, because all this is great, but what about the impact?
Yeah.
If it doesn't drive something, and again, think back to the example with Nike. There is something we are all predisposed to do today, is we want to operate in the same visual space. If we're looking at something, and every time we change what we're looking at, we have to reset our minds to disregard the noise in the background. That's one of the big pieces with AutoNation.
Absolutely. And again, you use the analogy of Nike, right? That customers, anywhere else they shop on the internet, right? They expect that, right? If you went to a site and you said, hey, I'm looking at sneakers, and the photos of the sneakers were blurry, or they were dark, right? Or they were kind of like, just didn't look right, you'd be like, you wouldn't accept that with a sneaker, but would you accept it with a $50,000, $60,000 car? You really wouldn't, right? And then again, is you're spending all this money to drive eyeballs to your websites, right? Whether organically or paid, right? And you want people not to bounce, right? You want them to convert. How do you do that? You have to engage them, right? You have to showcase and merchandise your products, your vehicles, and excite the customer to go further into that buying experience and ultimately converting.
And we all know that the GMs, we have a very healthy king of the castle mentality in a lot of these. And what we often see is there's a resistance to changing in processes. So what's interesting with AutoNation is we took a step back and we did a kind of a second level process that we didn't impact the GM's day-to-day lives. They were able to continue what they were doing. But what was the impact that the GMs brought you after they got used to this change?
Yeah, I mean, they're just happy that it's one less thing to do, right? We all know that. My day as a VP of digital marketing was handling the stores, right? They're saying, hey, I'm not happy with my photos, right? I don't think we're merchandising correctly. Well, when you get a solution like this, and when you have a partner that works with you, right? those calls disappear, right? That you have partners that get the job done, right? That's what we're all looking for. Again, going back, it's really, really hard, right, to get this right. There's a lot of steps from, hey, this vehicle landed on my lot today, to getting it, to getting it recon, to getting it photographed, to getting it onto your website, to getting it onto third-party websites. Right? There's a lot of hoops in this world, this ecosystem that we're in. So having a partner that helps you and gets automotive, right? It's not like, hey, we're in this other industry, but we're going to apply this to cars. CarCutter is automotive. That's what we do, right? We do it here in the US, we do it internationally as well, we do it with the manufacturers. That's what's important.
And you mentioned it a little bit earlier, a big, big part that pulls any organization back is not only the fear of change, but the perceptive difficulty to integrate. And as you were just saying, our deep knowledge of the automotive industry and our connections in there allowed AutoNation to seamlessly move from a disjointed process to one that's completely uniform.
Exactly. And again, it's having those vendors, right? Vendors work with vendors too, right? That it's not like, hey, if something breaks, it's like AutoNation has to call, say, a dealer.com, right? We're looking for partners to say, hey, the relationship is between CarCutter and dealer.com. They solve these problems, right? Back to that analogy of a General Motors. We don't want our stores having to figure that stuff out, right? We want stores to focus on selling cars, right? The marketing, the presentation on websites, the working on conversion, all that should be done by others, right? And that they're focused on again, selling cars. That's the key thing. So having vendors that understand the ecosystem, that work with each other, that are agnostic, right? If you said, hey, I was using HomeNet for my inventory distribution, but now I want to use vAuto, right? That doesn't trip anybody up. It doesn't break everything. It doesn't make you start from the beginning, right? It's just plug and play, off you go. Another thing we haven't mentioned about CarCutter, and what was really important for us, is live support, right? It's not like, hey, it's an AI engine looking at vehicles, right? Things happen, right? 100,000 cars, and even if you have 50 cars, right? One or two bad photos, get through it. It's just a fact of life. But how do you get those fixed? And do you have to do that? Like, do you really want every morning a GM or somebody to look at every photo on a website, right? That just doesn't work, right? So having partners that have live people that are supporting you and fixing things without you having to pick up the phone and say, this image is horrible, right? If there's a bad image out there, guess what? It's detect it and correct it. It's really important.
Perfect. So I think a big point of this, and it's really the piece we're driving home, is there has been a disconnect between the behaviors we expect as consumers when we're consuming anything. And again, it doesn't matter if it's groceries, it doesn't matter if it's a $100 pair of shoes, doesn't matter if it's a television sold at Best Buy. There is a behavior that we expect to interact with live on websites. And that is driven through the quality and the power of the images. And the interesting thing is, again, dealers do so many things right. If you think of the time and the investment spent walking the lot, making sure all the bumpers are aligned, making sure that cup that's floating out there disappears. And what we often talk about is how many times does somebody push the door of a dealership on a Monday morning or on a Tuesday afternoon or even on a Wednesday, versus how many people are constantly hitting your site. They're constantly seeing what your inventory online looks like. The days of somebody putting the family in a car, going down, spending an entire Saturday, driving the auto mile, seeing what's there, having 50 conversations, those don't exist so much anymore. They might do it, but they're coming with the armor of seeing everything you've already had online. And a coming soon sticker and a bio of what that car isn't going to get anybody to land and push the door of your dealership. So again, the effort that's put making everything spick and span lined up at the dealership for the few hundred people that could push through the week versus the thousands, if not 10,000s of people who are going to judge you not on the size of your dealership, not on the visual aspect of your showroom, but they're going to judge based on what you're showing online. So always keep in mind that the behaviors you have as consumers, and it doesn't matter what you're consuming, are the same that people have in dealerships, but the costs are enormous. The investment for a vehicle and the ability to, again, treat that as it should be is something that historically has been very, very difficult for dealers to capture in, but CarCutter has, through technology, through support and service, been able to capture. So a couple things here. 67% of people say that the quality of a product image is very important to their decision. That's basic. 92% of shoppers say that clear and detailed imagery are the most important feature when shopping online. Again, who's buying the blurry picture on Amazon or on Nike? And 65% of people say that the quality of the product image is more important than the product description. And we often talk about this internally in a bit of a joke of a dating application. If you've ever been on a dating application, what is everybody shopping for? Is everybody spending hours reading every single person's bio to find out what they do and what they believe in? No. You're making a judgment on what's in front of you. And that judgment is the images and the quality of those images. And the importance of that, to do it in a scalable way, like AutoNation did, and to be able to roll that out consistently, is, in today's world, one of the true game changers that's left in the automotive industry. So, thank you guys very much for your time. We hope you enjoyed it. If anybody has any questions, we can do live demos at the booth that's down on to the left, 8650. If not, check out our website. Have a great rest of the show. Thanks for making it.
Have a great show, everyone. Thanks.